invoke the presence of the Supreme Being and ask ourselves, what is regard? Do I really have true regard for the self and for others? And what is the basis of my regard in myself? So from today's workshop, let me give a chance to myself to explore the value of regard in detail. So with this, let's start with our workshop. We shall be having more participants soon, but we can't wait because the time is just up. So as you can see, we have been doing these workshops since almost now 2 years. We started in the lockdown, currently on the 49th, which is regard. And again, it's a pleasure to have our facilitators with us. Sister Anu joining from the West Coast, now in India though, and also Anu's Pooja sister joining from the center of India, the Nagpur. And we also have Brother David, who will be joining us in the form of giving a talk, but he's also there in the background to see what we are doing in the workshop. So let me just start with the icebreaker. I'll just stop sharing and make a new share. So as always, what we do is in the icebreaker video, we'll be showing you today a slightly lengthy video around 4 minutes. And then we'll ask your insights into what did you really learn from the video. So let's just show you that. It's an old lady, and then you can see, I'm not telling you anything else. Okay, so welcome back. So I'm sure you've seen this video which small kids usually, it's a nice moral story from there. So if you all can just start sharing in the chat box, or maybe if you wish to share orally as well, should be fine. Or you can do it in the chat box. Okay. Anyone motivated to speak? I think you all have joined a bit late, few more people. So it's okay. Yeah, I can see people typing. Oh yeah, but they're typing good mornings. Thanks. Oh, a very silent audience today. Oh, it has never happened that we don't even get a single response. Okay. It was the old lady who was trying to eat biscuits. Someone is feeling hungry. We can understand. Okay. So if there are no responses, then we can move on to the next activity. No worries. We'll see what responses you all can share later. Okay. So over to Anu, sister. Over to you for the first activity.
Okay, so yeah, let's start with our first activity. So this is the workshop on regard. Yeah, now we can see some in the chat box for the icebreaker. This distraction does not lead us to consider. So we have to consider about others, and that is regard. Something or other distracted doesn't mean we miss it. Yeah, thank you. So let's start with regard, as we always do. The first exercise is about reflecting on that value and how does it exist in our life. So yes, I can still read few on the chat box. Give respect to get respect. Never form a judgment too quick. Give regard to everyone and anyone. So that's a good start. That was good warming up. So now let's look at our first exercise. I think I'll switch off my video in case internet doesn't work. So, regard for someone and why. As we know, the value of regard, and we all feel the regard in our hearts for one or other, actually many in our lives. So there is this reflection questions would be on why do we regard somebody. So we'll take just about a minute to reflect on this question. Reflect on a person in your life for whom you have utmost regard. Well, we are talking about utmost regard. So at this moment, if you think of a person in your life for whom you feel the utmost regard, so reflect on that and explore the reasons behind that regard, the reasons, or what is that they do, or what is the reason, or what are the reasons that you have regard for them. So for that, we'll take just about 1 minute. Whatever you collect now as you reflect through this, please write it down. And then we'll take the sharing so you can open up and share. So the questions are on the screen. So let's take 1 minute. sure that was so. I'll request everybody to mute themselves, please. So I hope that was easy and fast. You could recognize or recall or think about the person for whom you have utmost regard in your life and why the regard for the person. So we would invite you to unmute and share. Anyone who is inspired to share. Okay, so Balvinder, are you ready to share? Did you unmute?
Sure, I'm ready to share. Good morning, everyone. Om Shanti. The person I am focusing on, my mom. Because of her, I was able to travel my life journey, even though I have to go through multiple life challenges. But because of her strongest level of support, I was able to enjoy my life journey today.
Thank
My
you so
mom.
much. Simple and straightforward. Yeah, thank you.
Okay, you want me to take the sharings? Okay, fine. So I think Anu sister is having some problem with her voice, right? So if other people want to share, you all can raise your hands. Subhash is saying utmost regard for wife, and the reason is for good family bonding. Excellent. Sister Pooja is saying my former colleague. She's named it Sharon. I'm sure Dr. Mehta knows it very well because she's saying she lives her life with dignity. Right. Then I mentioned about suddenly I'm having a kidney transplant patient, a very tough one to deal with, and he's not really doing very good. Well, that's destiny, I feel. So I think I have a lot of regard for my such very difficult to treat kidney transplant patients who really give me a lot of chance to learn about body physiology through whatever up and down is going on in their body. So I have a lot of regard for my such patients. Yeah, I think too much of talking from my side. If I can just inspire or motivate you all to speak up a bit. We have quite a few participants, almost 70. Normally we have 80 to 100. It spans from there, so we're almost nearing there. So anyone wants to share, please speak up. I think I can see a few. Yes. Well, are giving a lot of regard to the facilitators by not speaking. We are just speaking all the time. Yes, so someone else is saying for the employers, yes, because they give me lots of respect, they appreciate my hard work, and also gave me space. Okay, good. And also paid me well. Yeah, that's a good one. So I don't know who that is. Someone named user is saying that. So if you can please rename yourself so that we know who is speaking. So thank you for that sharing. Yeah, and Neil, I don't know, it's a brother or sister, but he's saying, I have the highest regard for God, the Supreme Being, and I return that regard by following his divine directions in the form of knowledge. So fantastic spiritual answer. Yeah. Does anyone wants to share? Vidhi sister want to share or Dr. Mehta, anyone? Because I can just see your videos which are on. Okay, yeah, go ahead. Yeah, Dr. Mehta first. Yeah.
I think I have seen both my mother, who used to look after me, even when I was a medical student in the final year. I used to stay in the hostel. She would come every week twice, bring my clothes, bring me extra food, sit with me for quite some time. And then when she would return home, she would have a little tears and eyes. And I've seen the same with my wife. I mean, she has made our life so easy and comfortable. So I think it's a woman and it's a motherhood or the sacrifice that they have. I think I have the greatest regard for them. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, Vidhi sister, go ahead. Yeah.
My mother, I would say, after my father's death, it's been more than 10 years. It's amazing how she has been a pillar for us. My younger brother got married and she came out of it so well. So we really respect her and we really admire her, how she has come up in spite of so many difficulties and being strong, and she's lived her life happily. She is living her life happily.
Right, great. So I think that slide was, I don't know, I must not say misleading, but it was about a mother and a child, right? So maybe many people are saying mother, but that's perfect. Okay, Fatima is saying that she's got regards for all of us. Thank you so much, Fatima, and for everything. And yes, above all, she's saying for God, whom very lovingly at Brahma Kumaris we call Baba. So everyone, you can see many responses as Baba. So she's saying sweet Baba. So that's fine. Then Rehna sister is saying when we are enlightened, we really can't pick up on one person, as we know that everyone deserves to be given regard, right? So it's a very highly spiritual answer again. So regard for everyone, not picking on anyone. Okay, then we have, oh, is Fatima a brother? Oh, okay, anyway, yeah, it's Santosh, so it's a brother, I think. Yeah, sorry for that. And we have one in, I think it's a Portuguese language, if maybe Brother Manuel can translate it, from Iris de Baba. Okay. Yeah, anyone else wants to speak about? So we can have a few more answers and otherwise then go into the next activity. Today we are short staffed, I must say. So we are not showing you the,
I have
you have written? Okay, okay, no problem. Okay, and yes, Balvinder is saying all the members at the Brahma Kumaris organization, she has got regard for all of them, for me, all, and Baba. Okay, so again for God. So again, so I hope now you all can understand when they write Baba, it's what when they are saying Baba, it's the supreme being we call Baba. I'm just saying that again. Yeah, Fatima, go ahead. You raised your hand. You're unmuted as well. Yeah. You wanted to say something? Yeah, she's joining. Yes, go ahead. Yeah. We can't hear you. No, I don't think your video, your audio is on. Okay, so if there are no more sharings, then we can go further. So you want to show us Anu's sister? Is it I am not able to hear or everyone is not able to hear Fatima Ben? No, no, yeah, it's we can't hear her, right? Yeah. Okay. Sorry, we can't hear you, sister. Okay. So yeah, you can see it's about patience, it's about relatives like wife, a very close bonding, former colleagues at work, many said mother, employer, then supreme being God, again mother and wife, these are the two ones which are coming more often, and mother. Right. So, and also a last was a very highly spiritual one, that once we get enlightened in life and know that all of us are actually souls. So working on that level, we should be having regard for everyone and not for a singular person. Okay, so thank you so much, Sister Anu. And yeah, before I forget, if there are new people who have joined today, if you can please share your WhatsApp numbers and your email addresses in the chat box, either to everyone or to Sister Vidhi, starts with V Vidhi, so that we can keep in touch with you and send you all the synopsis of the whatever today we are covering in the PowerPoints and the PDFs of all this material today. Right, so let's move on further. I'll start sharing the screen and take you somewhere else. So having seen that I have had regard for whom in my life, let us now turn the compass a bit inside. And this is about having regard for self. And before I go ahead in the meditative mode with y'all, let me just touch upon this topic that we really try to have regard for everyone in life, but sometimes do we have really got the regard for the self? And it could be given different names. Either you can call it self-worth, considering the self as, am I really worthy of giving regard to myself? Or you can also think of something called self-respect. And by the way, respect and regard are very overlapping terms, but we will be exploring the differences, and maybe Brother David can also tell us later when he gives the talk about the differences. So as Rehna's sister already shared, that on a spiritual perspective, when we consider myself to be a soul, the divine energy, the divine light of the Supreme Being, and someone else also in front of me as another soul, then giving regard becomes very natural. So I think let's try to explore this aspect a bit. And for that, I would request all of you all to do a little bit of meditation with me. I'll be giving you a few thoughts, and then you can visualize or you can feel those whatever thoughts I'm giving you all. So let's sit back for a minute. Sit back straight, take a deep breath in and out. And visualize yourself to be this beautiful, conscient being of light, the pure soul that you are. And once you realize that you are this energy, the beautiful energy which is full of all virtues and powers. To name a few, I am peaceful, loveful, and blissful. And as the Supreme Being, who is the ocean of all these virtues and powers, so am I, an embodiment of each of these virtues or powers. And God, Allah, Ishwar, whatever you want to call him, the Supreme Being, he's given me my true introduction of who am I. And he's got the utmost regard for each one of us, the beautiful souls who we are. And he comes and reminds us of our true intrinsic nature, which is again full of all virtues and powers, which we had actually seemed to forgotten over the many last few years. But he's come back to take us out of this deep slumber which we were in, considering ourselves to be these bodies. We really had a tough time dealing with life. But now, through the practice of self-introspection and meditation, when I realize that I am not this body, but the pure energy, the soul, who is full of virtues and powers, I begin to realize my own worth. My self-esteem begins to rebuild, and I now start having regard for myself. And this translates into regarding other souls as well, equal to as I am. And then giving regard to each one becomes so very natural. So let's come back. So with these beautiful thoughts, we'll try to explore them more. I would now request Sister Pooja, over to you for the next activity.
Thank you, Manoj Bhai, for taking us through that beautiful meditation. Having empowered the self and realizing the slogan of giving regard and receiving regard, let's move on a step further. From the self, we now go on to others. So let me just share my screen. We will get into the action planning mode, and let's explore ways that we can implement regard at the workplace. So think of ways that you can show regard to your colleagues, maybe your subordinates or even seniors at work. We have about a minute or so, and then we'll get into sharing. What is it that we can do to show regard to our colleagues, our superiors, or even our subordinates? We can start sharing maybe in the chat box, or if somebody would like to speak, you may raise your hand. We'd like to have some people talking. We haven't had too many today. Makes me think sometimes it's probably easier to give regard to our superiors, but are we giving regard to our subordinates as well? We have a sharing in the chat box from BK Rehna, appreciating their strengths and skills, encouraging them to overcome weaknesses. Yes, appreciation is one of the tools that is not used as much as it should be at the workplace. So absolutely correct, Rehna. Vidhi says, listen to their suggestions and opinions first. Yes, listening is another thing. Sometimes, especially with subordinates, we tend to not listen to them because we think we know better. But Vidhi rightly says that we must listen to others' suggestions as well. Brother Manoj says subordinates, that is junior resident doctors, so this is in the healthcare setup, asking them about their challenges, what they are going through. Yes, that is a lot of compassion that you are showing by asking people what they are going through and not just bothered about what you are going through and trying to resolve it. Another sharing says, with kind behaviors, show love and care. That's a lot of values that we are getting through these sharings. Would you like to speak, Brijpal Bhai? I think you're
Yeah,
unmuted.
let me.
Yes.
Yes. Let me speak.
Sure, go ahead.
First of all, thinking everyone has its own limitations. We must listen, we must understand, and that then we must accept. And as has been said, the appreciation is also the first prerequisite. But above that, we should learn to self-respect oneself. That is the most important thing. I can tell you one instance. In the year 1959, when I was 16 years old, right? President de Gaulle of France gave the first maiden speech. What he said, countrymen, each one of you cannot become the president of the nation, but you, if you think and act like the president of your nation will be proud of you. So first, in that fashion, you give self-respect to yourself. If you give self-respect, then you come to that level, you will be able to give respect to the others. And then, as has been discussed before, the respect with vis-a-vis regard, what is the difference? What I have learned through this various discourses, that respect is to the ordinary soul, but the regard is to the elevated soul. So one should attempt to have all these 7 qualities of the original pure soul to get the respect, as we are giving to the BKs, Babas, and the spiritual high beings. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Brijpal brother. So in essence, what he's trying to say is unless and until you have self-respect, it will be difficult to give respect to others. The difference between respect and regard is something that, if I may take the liberty of saying so right now, it would be wonderful if Brother David could touch upon it during his talk, because this is coming up again and again. So what is the difference between respect and regard? As Manoj Bhai said, it does overlap. We are having quite a few sharings in a different language in the chat box. So if somebody could just please translate those. Dr. Ashok Mehta says to give regards is to receive regards and love. Yes, so when you are receiving regards, you're also giving regards. Is that what you're trying to say, sir? You're muted, sir. If you're speaking, we can't hear you.
When you give regard, you receive something more. Not only regard, but you get love at the same time.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Very thoughtful.
And one more sharing is there. Pooja, when you want to read that, Iris, it's translated in English. The next one, I'll read it out.
Yeah,
so
sure.
Iris is saying that, I mean, you were specifically asking for juniors and subordinates. So she's saying that respect subordinates by valuing them and appreciating their contribution to the complete management. And that in any company, we are all necessary. So even if it is a class 4 servant or just a sweeper, even that person is so important for the management. and we need to respect the work which he's doing, because I get your point. If that person is not doing the sweeping on a regular basis, it is a big mess to be around. So each and everyone's role, though it may sound or look very small, but is very important. Then Subhash Bhai is saying, keep harmony and be non-judgmental. Okay, so with your colleagues. So Subhash Bhai, you want to speak a little bit more, unmute and speak about how to create harmony at workplace. One is by being non-judgmental, you said that. And yeah, you are able to unmute. You can go ahead and unmute. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Balwinder, in the meantime, you go ahead. Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead. Yeah.
At workplace level, no, before I start, I will respect, I will give regard to other people only if I have understood the definition of regard for myself. What does it mean, self-regard? What does it mean for myself? So what if I understand that definition, then of course at workplace, if I'm experienced employee, then I will definitely share my knowledge and understanding, my teaching and learning resources with all new employees. In family or in community setting, I will try my best to spend quality time with seniors, because sometimes we do ignore, right? We know, and at self level, what I will do in terms of regard, if I find myself, I am quite successful in order to transfer my life challenges, my life drama into my beautiful treasures, then of course I will share my life journey with other community members by sharing what I have done. Thank you.
Thank you, Sister Balwinder. We also have another sharing, quite a few in a different language as well. So we'll take those down later as we receive the translations. Thank you for all your sharings. If there are more, please continue sharing in the chat box, and we will send them as a review later. Let's move on to the next one, Manoj Bhai. Let's have a look at the synopsis of the previous talk.
Okay. Yeah. So Anu sister, do you want to show we have written it? Okay. So you just want to finish this Puja Ben, and then I'll go with that. Yeah.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
It's a little, yeah, thanks. So we had quite a few values, as I said, during the sharings. Appreciating strengths and skills of others, subordinates, quite a few people wrote about the subordinates, encouraging them to overcome weaknesses. Listening is another skill, so appreciating, listening, then also asking them what they are going through, love, care, understanding, accepting, and to give regards is to receive regards. So it's not just receiving regards, it's also receiving love, as Dr. Mehta said. Harmony and keeping harmony by being non-judgmental. And unless you respect yourself, it is going to be difficult to respect others as well. And spending quality time with seniors, because sometimes we tend to overlook that, as Balwinder sister mentioned. And respect subordinates again by valuing and appreciating their contribution, because it's all about teamwork. Thank you, Anu sister. And
Okay.
encouraging with Baba's word, peace, and tone of voice, as Melanie puts it. That's the last one. Thanks. Over to you, Manoj Bhai.
Yeah, thank you. And I'll just acknowledge Iris again. It is mentioned. She's saying respecting self. I feel that it requires detachment and spiritual strength. Okay, good. So let's move on further. Though it was a silent crowd today, but we still have many responses. Your chat box sharings were helpful. Thank you so much. And I would not be spending a lot of time, because I don't want to keep Brother David waiting a lot. But in the next 10 to 12 minutes, what I'll do is, as we always do, we'll just look at what Sister Maureen shared with us at the last weekend during the talk. So she actually said, she was asking me that can she speak about dignity? I said, yes, why not? So she really went into a lot of dignity. And again, many times Pooja Behan, myself, and all of us are saying, I'm sure Brother David will do this, differences between regard and respect. So what Sister Maureen said, dignity is to recognize the inherent worth of a being. And if you remember in the meditation, that's what we were trying to do. Look at what my inherent worth is. And when that is not really recognized, one can really go into what is called emotional injury. People who counsel sometimes, as counselors, that invariably comes out. You may not purposely do it, but that feeling of, oh, I am a counselor, I am someone superior, that really doesn't help the situation, because there the people feel that their dignity is compromised. So we need to be very, very careful as counselors, particularly when people who are depressed or dejected or sad, that they should not feel, oh, that they are inferior to us. No. And also, when someone's identity is compromised, Maureen's sister said it's about a feeling of not being heard or being dismissed or not being seen. So these were the beautiful sharings which she said. Then she took us in the depth of how to practice dignity. As I said, she covered more on dignity, and that's what she was wanting to do. So she said 10 practice points or 10 ways. So I think, as we covered in the action planning, the ways of how to give regard to each other, let's look at what she had to say about the 10 ways of practicing dignity. The first of all is acceptance, accepting how people they are. Just accept them, because that gives immediately a positive energy to them. Because in my mind, then I don't have those disrespecting thoughts for them. Second is recognizing, the recognition which we should be giving to people, recognizing that each and everyone has their own strengths and weaknesses. And I remember here uh, in the management courses, there is something called SWOT analysis, SWOT, where people are inspired or rather motivated to think about their strengths and weaknesses. That's the S and W, and about the opportunities and threats. So we need to recognize what are my special points, what are my negative points. Next is acknowledge. Acknowledge, again, the same thing in a little bit different manner, recognizing and acknowledging. And acknowledge the people, particularly at workplace, their contribution. Like, for example, if I can speak for myself, when I am with a team of the junior doctors, the resident doctors, they really have to slog a lot. They have to do emergencies back to back, 36 hours as well. I remember me doing that as well. And then if the consultant can just even mention, oh, that great, you have done a good job and you have contributed a lot to the management of this patient, that really makes your day. So acknowledging someone is really a good way to give them regard and maybe dignity. Inclusivity, another beautiful word, that you feel them that, oh, you're a part of the group, not exclusive, but inclusive. Then along with inclusivity, make sure that you also make them independent. Because sometimes if people are so dependent on you, that is actually snatching away their regard. You should also make sure that if you want to empower people, you have to make them independent. So these were the first 5. The next 5 are safety. So we need to make sure that the community in which we are, or the group where we are as a group together, we should be able to provide a safe working environment for them. Along with that, fairness, we should be treating everyone with fair means. Next is giving them benefit of doubt. And as Subhash brother already said, that at workplace, we really need to be non-judgmental about people and their behaviors, and let them do the work. Don't doubt whether they'll do it right or wrong, and then see what they are doing. So give the benefit of doubt to them. And I think the next 2 ones are understanding and accountability. We need to understand that all of us are so different. We come from different backgrounds, different skin colors, maybe if you're working abroad, particularly in big places or big hospitals in the US and UK, where you have all different colored people. So understand that they are coming from a different background. And lastly, accountability, that another word which closely comes to accountability is taking responsibility, self-responsibility, that yes, I am responsible for whatever is happening, particularly in my life at the moment. Then she said a few other important points which will help us in developing the self-respect or the self-worth. So let me tell you, it is all about respect here now. So the one which I also in the meditation was trying to allude to was the practice of soul consciousness. And I feel in my life also, the more I have started doing that, automatically self-respect emerges. Then another beautiful thing taught at Brahma Kumaris is Nyara and Pyara. In Hindi, Nyara means detached and Pyara means loving. So we need to again strike a beautiful balance of both these values, loving and detachment. Both of these in the past workshops we have covered, the workshop on detachment and also on love. Then we need to be careful not to get caught up in anyone's story, because everyone's story is so different. Everyone's karmic accounts and behaviors, sanskars are so different. So let's not get caught up in their story. Let's work with them, but make sure that you don't get really stuck. I must say in English that word. Identify their specialities, which we already said that identify and sort of recognize and understand, acknowledge whatever the value systems they are. And very important, one more thing she said, do not give unsolicited advice. And that's what happens in organizations. Sometimes as a senior, I feel, oh, I'm a senior person, so I need to really give advice to my juniors every now and then. But no, I mean, if the juniors are not even asking you, you better don't give them, because that is not respecting self actually. Then she took us into regard and self-respect, which again, as I said, brother David will do that job more. And this was her quote, that ask yourself, what are my core values? Because all of us have these innate values which we, and our entire life is dependent on what my core values are. What am I willing to live and die for? A very strong sentence, to die for something. And that's the key to understanding who I really am. That's what she said. And let's take a few questions. I have almost 6-7 minutes before I give it to Brother David. So the question was, how does one maintain a balance between self-respect and not ruining a relationship when it comes to sharing opinions with someone who doesn't agree with you? So she said it's fine to have different opinions because everyone is so different, but I should be able to accept. That's again the acceptance which she mentioned. Accept your opinion about yourself. Don't get affected by what the other person is telling you. And again, be non-judgmental, because we feel that we are being judged by others. So let's not go in that mode at all. So how do I deal? The next question is particularly about unsolicited advice, which she mentioned. And the question was, my adolescent child, how do I deal with him? Because he really very bluntly tells me, or very rudely, that it's none of your business, don't give me advice. So Maureen's sister said, yes, he's growing up and he doesn't want to be treated like a child. You know, adolescence, that phase, all of us know, we have had our own children or even our own cousins, whatever, the younger ones. We know that adolescence is a phase where they are not even fully adults, but they're not children at all as well. So self-actualizing is a part of growing up. So let them take their own decisions. Try to step back and try to work with dignity by making them feel comfortable. And yeah, how does one deal with giving regard sincerely to the one who doesn't practice what they preach? So yeah, the beautiful answer was that let's work on our vision towards them. Visualize what they should be, and then you will definitely see a positive change. So this is again what at Brahma Kumaris we call trying to change the atmosphere through my own attitude. Because my attitude, if towards someone is positive, my vision towards that person will be positive, and I'll exude those vibrations. And that definitely will help the person to change. So I think I would stop here sharing these things. And before I give it to Brother David, first of all, let me thank him immensely for being here. I don't know what's happening. Okay. Yeah. So I think, Brother David, if you can just, yeah, thanks. Asked to start the video, yeah. So let me introduce you to the entire audience and then all the stage is yours. So he has joined us for the first time here, but let me give you a brief background about him. He's an experienced meditator with an accessible blend of humor and very down-to-earth spiritual wisdom. I'm sure you'll experience that through his talk. He also has a few hobbies, like he's a keen organic gardener and loves all types of sport. And just to let you know, he's a retired community dentist and also is presently a trustee of the Janki Foundation, which we have for spirituality in healthcare from UK, London, UK. And currently, as we speak, he's based in Leeds in UK, North England, and he helps to coordinate the activities there. And he's working with the Brahma Kumaris for now over 40 years, which is a pretty long time. And let me just, as always, speak a little bit in the form of a poem for him, and then a little bit of poem on regard. So we have with us Dr. David Goodman, who is indeed a gentleman, of whom we all from the Values Workshop team are a very big fan. In more than 40 years of his spiritual journey, if we span, he's got this unique opportunity to be able to scan and get souls out of the internal heat with a spiritual fan. Otherwise, they have just behind materialism ran and ran, and finally now realize that with meditation, we will and we can. So particularly, we will be able to regard ourselves and give regard to others. So a few lines on regard. So today he shall enlighten us on how to have regard for one another, look at each other as souls and meet each other as a brother. Let's sustain our racing and crying mind, pacifying it like a mother, so that amidst crisis and chaos, it doesn't anymore have to bother. Let us be the mother of our mind. It doesn't bother you. And now on my spiritual journey, I have indeed come a long way farther or further, that small petty things of me and mine don't disturb me rather. So with this, I would give it to Brother David. Thank you so much for joining. And he's one of our very rare speakers who has joined right from the beginning. You were there, you were seeing what we were doing. So all yours, over to you. Thank you. You have to, sorry, you have to unmute. I don't know it again. Yeah.
Is that better? Can you hear now? Yeah. Can you hear? Yeah.
Yes, yes, yes.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. I must admit, when I'd seen all the list of people you had, I thought, oh my goodness. And I must give a big thanks to the team. I'd been seeing the emails from time to time. I hadn't realized you've been keeping this going for 2 years or something like that. I think that's amazing. I must say, I put my in England we say take my hat off to you, because I thought, gosh, that is absolutely amazing how you've kept going with all the virtues and the values. So and I must admit, I did listen to Maureen's talk actually, because I was interested. I mean, when you asked me, would I do something, I always say, okay, I'll say yes. I've learned not to say no, because it's always an opportunity to do something, even if it's a bit challenging. I'm sure we all can equate with that, when we have to have a bit of courage to do something where we don't always feel 100% confident. In the early days when I was younger, give me a football or a cricket bat or wicket-keeping gloves, in my case, tennis racket, table tennis, I was pretty confident. I was quite I was quite good at a lot of sports, which I enjoyed. But you know, the whole thing of speaking and sharing was absolutely foreign to me. Shouting out orders on the football pitch as captain of the team was easy, but actually talking and you know, so it's always taken me a while to get my head around these things. But I must admit, you can't see my desk, I'm pleased to say, but I'm surrounded by prompt cards because ever since you asked me to talk about regard, I've been thinking about it a lot more. Actually, I was very happy and relieved when you said regard, because I thought, yes, that's something that it immediately resonates with me, because it's something which it just feels so important. But to be honest, I am going to share a few things, but the majority of the things that I was thinking would be to share have already been shared. They've come up in the conversations. Maureen's talk last week, which you've highlighted, was very, very comprehensive. But in my mind, it's always a question, well, you know, how can I practice these things? And because, as you do when you're supposed to share a few things, you think, well, I better really practice it this week. And we're in a Brahma Kumari's meditation center here. There's 5 of us, and this thing of individuality is so important, because we're so, you know, I mean, I think it was Shakespeare, wasn't it? We're all, the world is but a stage, and we are all actors on the stage. And of course, in the Brahma Kumaris, we have this idea that, you know, the whole world is like a drama, and we're actors, and each one of us is unique. And actually, you know, I was making notes as talking. This has come up a lot, hasn't it? To really, really accept that we are completely different. Yes, we're spiritual beings. When Kamaris, we use the term souls, and we've got all the innate values and virtues, but how we think, how we decide, how we function, we are very, very, very different. And I know Sister Maureen, my better half, Sister Maureen Goodman, when we first came, we were quite, well, very young, and I remember it felt as if Sister Maureen was sort of, you know, going on a trajectory like this, and I was, you know, going a bit slower. And I was driving Daddy Janki at that time, and, you know, Daddy Janki passed away recently, but she was based in the UK for many years and was the head of the Brahma Kumaris. And I was sort of talking to her, and she said something which, this must have been 40, gosh, over 40 years ago. She said, David, never, ever compare yourself with anyone. And I've really thought about that a lot since that time, because ultimately, with all these spiritual ideas, I mean, I'm just listening to, you know, what's been shared. I mean, I felt like overwhelmed by such beautiful points. But ultimately, you know, the final common denominator is can I take one of these aspects and really embed it in myself, so that it really becomes part of me. So yeah, I mean, where to start? You know, I think you've mentioned cleaners, and just going back to sort of regard and respect. To be honest, I'm not really sure I got a clear difference between the two. And I was heartened, because I do remember when Sister Genti, who is one of now the additional administrative heads of Brahma Kumaris, was asked about, you know, the difference between self-worth and self-respect and self-regard and self-esteem, and she sort of hedged it. Now, maybe this was quite a long time ago, so maybe she'd say something different now. But when I was thinking about it, I was just writing it down, regard, respect, esteem, worth has come up, dignity. They feel almost like, I don't know if they have it in India, but in England, we have something called a colorizer, when you go to the paint shop and trying to pick your colors, and on the greens it'll go from very dark green all the way very, very light shades to very light green. And so on the genre of green, you might get like 10 or 15 colors. They're all green, but they've all got a slightly different shade. And I really do feel, when we're talking about regard and respect, esteem, dignity, worth, that we're really on the what you'd call the same wavelength, the same genre, really. And so in my mind, I was thinking, for me anyway, it was more important when I thought about this, not so much like seeing all the differences, but seeing how I can integrate those kind of things into my life. Although I did ask someone, and I like what they said, regard is really how you see someone. I think, when you're doing something like this, you quite often look at a dictionary to see what's, and when you look at regard, I think I looked at one site that has 42 definitions of regard, quite a lot of which have come up, and I thought, oh my goodness. But regard immediately has, connects to this French word, really, to regard, like to see. And so regard for me is really about how you're seeing someone, and respect could be how you actually treat them. So that's, I'm just offering that. I'm not saying it's a definitive definition, but regard how you see someone, and respect is how you treat them. And for me, that's important, because how you treat someone is a choice in there. There's an internal choice, and I can make those choices if I can practice to overcome my old habits, which basically stop us doing everything. And just sort of going back a little bit, you probably covered this a little bit, but in different cultures, there are a lot of, I don't know what you call protocols. In Hindi, we'd say maryadas. I don't quite know how you translate that, Pooja. Probably a way of doing things, and sometimes we're brought up, that would include manners and being polite and things like that. And there's nothing wrong with those. They're lovely. But someone from a different culture, or someone from a different family, maybe even in India, from a different city, they have different ways of doing things. Like, I know some of the BK sisters, like in our center, we don't really use chili, but I know some of the BK sisters, they will carry the chili chutney with them, because they need the they need the chili, and it's just a cultural thing. It's not. It's a very unimportant thing, except when you are cooking for them and you find out that we haven't got any chili in the center, and their meal isn't complete without chili. Now, for myself, I can't quite get my head around chili, because I like to taste the vegetables, and the chili is just hot. But so it's like, it's a very silly little thing, really, but it just shows, how very, very different, very, very different we can be. And so one of the other things that I was sort of thinking about was that regard can be, to some extent, external. And so, giving regard because of someone's age, and that's perfectly great, because of their position, because of their standing in society because of their education, etc. And, you know, when I was young, we were always brought up to give regard to elders. And, you know, when I was a kid, when on the bus, you know, it was absolute the norm that you would stand up when someone older got up, and particularly if it was a woman, you just get up and give them your seat. Now, I don't travel on public transport very often, but I did recently, and I was surprised that young people just were sitting there, and there was older people, women standing, and I was thinking, goodness, have they not got, you know, any manners, or do they not see that it would be a nice thing to do? And then I looked across at them, and I realized they were so absorbed, like most people are, on their iPhone or their phone, that they probably didn't even notice.
Yeah. There
They
is, you
didn't even
having
notice.
water, how long ago?
Huh?
How long ago?
This is just recent. This is just a few days ago that we.
Yeah, they will smell.
I know. I'm gonna walk through all of them.
Okay, someone's muted now. So, you know, so all those kind of protocols can be, to a certain extent, external, and also it could be that I can give regard to someone externally because it's what's expected, but internally, I might not respect them. I mean, I know in some cases we shouldn't need to earn people's respect, but I feel, for myself anyway, I do feel I have to earn people's respect by my behavior, and you know, there's lots of cases, isn't there, where people are given regard for their position, but they're not respected because of maybe their behavior or the way they speak to people, and I think that's really important. I mean, when we're looking, you know, the reason I actually came on the first part of the workshop, yes, I did want to see what the structure was because it helps me, and also to hear what was being said, so I just didn't repeat everything. But I was actually genuinely interested because this quality of regard, I just feel, is so important, because it feels that, like, the energy of regard, and was kind of interchanging it with respect a little bit, aren't we? It feels to me that it's almost higher than a value. I mean, in Brahma Kumaris, it's like, I would say it's an intrinsic virtue of the soul. In fact, what did I write down? It's like, yeah, the soul itself is respectful energy, or you can say the soul is regardful energy. It feels that is what a human being is about. And I think when we're talking, for me anyway, when I'm talking about regard and respect, it's really about getting in touch with something that is so deep, that is so intrinsic, that it really needs to be respected. It really needs to be expressed, but in a very, very natural way. I mean, I was trying to think of some examples, Rob, because a lot of the stuff, you know, you've covered, and then Maureen's covered beautiful things. But I remember when I was training to be a dentist, and we went out onto I think the first year or second year, I can't remember. We went out onto the wards with some of the medical students, and there was a consultant, and he referred to, this is the suspected cardiac failure in bed 6, and this is the acute pulmonary something in bed 4. And I was very, very young, and this was actually, although I was interested in meditation and spirituality, I wasn't, you know, connected with the Brahma Kumaris at that time. This was in the early 70s. And I looked at the lady in the bed, and I thought, gosh, she could be my mother. That could be my mother. And I didn't know anything about all the stuff we're talking about today, but inside there was a very, very strong feeling that came, that I never, ever ever want to relate to someone or refer to someone like this guy has just done. I mean, he had so much ego of his position, and I thought no, because it didn't actually feel didn't feel right, and it felt very dehumanizing, and it felt very undignified, and all the, you know, I'm just looking at the prompt notes. I mean, basically, they're all the things that I was reflecting on that are connected to respect and regard, and basically the things that you've already talked about. You know, value, intrinsic value. I mean, you know, if you think about human rights, because it's coming up to Human Rights Day on the 10th of December, which, funny enough, is actually the 25th anniversary of Janki Foundation, which has been supporting Global Hospital. And that's how if I'm being honest, you know, I used to give talks and things, but I wasn't aware of things like facilitation until I got exposed to very experienced facilitators in the Janki Foundation. When we talked about values, you know, and that our 25th anniversary happens to be on the Human Rights Day, which is why it's coming in my mind. But, you know, if you look at the Human Rights Charter, the UN Human Rights Charter, particularly Article 1, you know, all human beings are born free, equal in dignity and in rights, which, you know, and they say that, which means that each human being is endowed with reason and conscience and should act towards one another in a spirit of brotherhood. So if you haven't looked at the UN Human Rights Charter, it's worth a look, you know, because basically the UN, and of course the Brahma Kumaris have affiliation to the UN as that non-governmental organization, is basically underpinned by values. Intrinsic human values. And intrinsic to that, as you've mentioned, is that each one of us has an inherent value, its intrinsic value. And it's actually, I think, understanding my own self-value is actually integral to who I am. And that's why, you know, if you, I did look at definitions of regard, and actually, you know, one of them was to recognize the inherent worth of someone or something. And so it's like being able to see the inherent worth and value of someone or something is absolutely critical, in my experience, to being able to practice or cultivate regard and respect, and that kind of brought me on to thinking about, because when you look at regard, it is about my vision. It's very much how I'm seeing someone, how I'm or seeing something, and I really do feel we've got to go beyond the hierarchical outer regard of just giving a regard because of systems. As I said, I think it's very nice. I like those systems of respect and regard and manners and politeness, but we've got to go beyond that so that it's coming really very deep from within, so that I can really train myself to see the speciality in another person, their qualities. And for that, I've really got to train my vision. You know, just one example, going back to when I was working, because I was practicing meditation and involved in a little bit of training and spiritual training and positive thinking, I ended up running some sessions in the health trust where I was, and because of that, I ended up being a staff representative on the development board, so we'd sit around the table and there'd be the chief executive and head of training and quite high, quite high up people. And there was little old me as a clinician, just basically a common garden dentist, around the table. And I used to enjoy that. But one thing really struck me in regard to this giving regard for position and how it can be sometimes quite difficult. There was one young woman, and she was by day being trained up to be one of the top managers. So I don't quite know in the years, so she was going to be very high up in the health trust. By night, because she was a single parent, she was working as a cleaner. So by night, she was the cleaner in one of the clinics of the health trust. Can you imagine? And by day, she was being trained up to be a top manager. Now, put yourself in the position of, say, a clinician. Some of the my colleagues that I worked with, not all of them, but some of them didn't have a lot of respect for the cleaners because it was a very manual job. And like you mentioned, I think it was Manoj mentioned earlier, I used to think, gosh, but if I came into the surgery every morning and all the gubbins and all the bloody things and all the in the bins haven't been cleaned and hadn't been emptied out and everything wasn't all wiped down and sterilized, I mean, I wouldn't be able to work properly. So in my mind, a cleaner has an absolutely integral part of the team. In fact, I can remember one of who was the head of cleaning, and she was like a top manager. She comes in and she looks around and she said, "Mr. Goodman, when was the last time this floor has been polished? It doesn't look up to standard to me." And I thought, my goodness, there's a cleaning person who's got as much values for cleanliness as we talk about, because that's another definition of a value, giving value. But for me, I give value to something that I consider to be important, and for her, obviously, that was important. So I was thinking, gosh, what vision would someone look at her? She's going to become a top manager, and someone looking at it in the clinic would say, "Oh, it's the cleaner." And I must admit, I thought, wow, yes, you could get tripped up over that. And so, that does bring us back to this idea of having an equality of vision, which I think is like a respectful vision, which is beyond the roles. So that's, okay, so that's one point I'd like to make. The other point, Maureen did mention it, and you referred to it, Manoj, the absolute importance of giving unconditional positive regard. And I've got some friends who work with young people who are basically excluded from or pretty much outside the norms of society. I don't know how it translates, and I hope I'm not speaking, my speed is okay for the translators. But there's a term in England called NEETs, and it's a sort of an acronym, it's a shorthand. So NEET is usually young people, so they're not in education, so they're not at school or university. They're not in employment, so they're not working, and they're not in the T, they're not in training. So they're not doing anything in society, they're not working, they're not being educated, they're not training for anything, and generally quite often they're excluded. And in England, there's a term called feral. I mean, that probably doesn't translate. Feral it's almost like a wild animal, you know, where there's absolutely no boundaries, and some of these young people literally just do whatever they want, and they have absolutely no boundaries. Now, it seems, you know, that pretty much one of the only things that gives the possibility of these young people changing is when they're given what is called unconditional positive regard. And you know, you probably heard that the term. It was well, it was, I think it was made famous by Carl Rogers, the psychologist, and that giving unconditional positive regard, it involves showing complete support and acceptance of a person, someone. So you're showing complete support and acceptance of a person, no matter what they say or what they are doing or what they have done. So you're not evaluating them, you're not judging them, you're not condemning them. And that has to be done. I can't remember the time period, but it has to be done over months, maybe even years. And when they feel this just unconditional, so it's like it's a regard which is totally accepting them, and there's no judgment in there, then slowly some of those young people actually change. And because one of the things I was thinking about in terms of regard and respect, it's an energy, isn't it? You know, I mean, in any relationship, it's like, you know, people, I'm told, I've never worked in a call center, but we have people, we have someone here at the center who used to, and you know, you pick up the good morning, and the person's thinking, oh gosh, not another customer, not another person to chew off my head. So they say good morning, and actually inside they're not feeling that. And so, I mean, I don't know about people at work always used to know when I answered the phone. And even here at the meditation center, people, we know it's you, David, because you always pause for a second before you speak. Because you don't know what's on the end of that telephone. And obviously, I used to have emergencies, nothing like, you know, you would have Manoj or Dr. Mehta with big operations, but you don't know what's going to come. And it was always like a little preparation just to be present before you actually speak. And I do feel in terms of cultivating regard and cultivating respect, because I was thinking about how to actually do that, is actually one of the skills, and it's already been mentioned, you know, that there's clearly a link between my ability to give regard and respect to others and my ability to give it to myself. And as I said, it's all to do with how I see myself. What vision am I seeing myself? And I do think this whole thing of vision is so important. And it's also, in my mind, oh no, you probably can't see that. I'm probably back to front anyway. I'm very low tech with this because I'll get myself mixed up if I try and start showing slides. Anyway, but there was something that we discussed in one of our health workshops, that there's a very close connection. If you can imagine a triangle with, you know, and at the apex you've got value, and then on one corner you've got respect or regard, and on the other you've got care. So you've got value, respect, and care. And it feels that when I'm trying to cultivate respect and then also care for people, look after people, I've got to first understand the value. When I understand the value of something, then I respect it, have regard for it. And when I understand its value and I respect and regard it, then I will naturally look after it. So I'll care for it. Yeah. Would you agree? You can't, well, I'm hoping you agree. Or you can think about it. And so in terms of myself, I've got to learn how to value myself. I've got to learn how to respect and give regard to myself. And then I've got to learn how to care for myself. And, you know, for me, that was my whole entree into values, basically with the Janki Foundation, because the whole ethos of the Janki Foundation was basically to support the well-being of health practitioners and patients, basically to care. And so those three, in my mind, are very closely connected: value, respect, care. And if you can imagine, at the middle of the triangle is appreciate, which again, you know, we've mentioned before, and I'm not going to apologize for repeating it, because actually I think it's absolutely critical. In Leeds, we have a beautiful Cistercian abbey, which is now an old ruins. And we do meditative walks around the abbey, and we have 4 banners up, and we have silent walks and have conversations about the different qualities, kindness, strength. But one of them is appreciative. And the banner on appreciative is, I focus on goodness. I focus on goodness. And for me, when I'm looking at the relationship between value, respect, and care, it's appreciate is the one that's in the middle. And it means I focus on goodness. And, you know, that's why I was saying before that, you know, regard can be an external thing, but respect is something internal, and it's a choice. And I do like this idea of making a choice about what I focus on. And so I'll just very little what I focus on, as a choice, but also it's, as I said, it's about my vision. So I'm going to get my little prompt card now, because I made some notes. Vision seems absolutely important, and it does feel, you know, it connects to this idea of regard, doesn't it? Because it's about looking at, it's about how I see things, it's about what perspective I have on things. And that's also connected to my attitude, because I understand attitude as my mental positioning to something. So it felt to me, when we're talking about learning to appreciate and focusing down on goodness, that it's really about vision. And I do like the example that comes up in a lot of the, you know, the spiritual teachings of the archer, you know, who's I think get the story mixed up, but I think in the Gita, wasn't it, when he was asked, Arjuna was asked, what can you see? And, you know, all he could see, was it the eye of the bird or the eye of the fish? I can't quite remember, but basically, if it was in the tree, he wasn't seeing the sky or the tree or bird. He was actually looking at right at the center of the eye. And this idea of really focusing down. And so this idea of really focusing down on goodness. I focus on goodness. I choose to see goodness. And you know, it's been mentioned before, but here we are. The 3 months. Well, actually, this is 3 koala bears. Actually, that's in India. It would be 3 monkeys. What is it? see no evil, hear no evil, and speak no evil. And that's very much connected to what we're talking about, isn't it? And I was thinking on a deeper level, because obviously what we speak depends on our thinking. We'd have to go inside and think, to think no evil, to feel no evil, and also on a deeper level, to intent no evil, not to have any intention. Because all of those things, as we know, create a vibration and an energy which creates an atmosphere. And that's why if I say to someone that comes through the door and I think, oh gosh, not them, I'm sure you would have some of those patients where your heart would sink. And you say, oh, really nice to see you, Mr. Jones. But inside you're thinking, oh gosh, no. Then even though you're saying the words, the vibration that will reach them, it won't match. There won't be congruence between what I'm saying and what I'm feeling and deep inside. And that's why, one of the things when you said, regard for someone, that they were consistent and they were inside and outside is the same. So that's just one comment. We do use this expression in the Brahma Kumaris, and it may not be, just us, but, to see but not to see. Because if someone's in front of you getting angry, or if someone is displaying disrespect to someone, you can't physically not see it because it's right in front of you. And I did ask one of our very senior teachers once, she said, don't see it. I said, but if someone's getting angry right in front of you, how can you say don't see it? And then she said, okay, David, what I mean by that is you're after they've got angry at you, your vision for them shouldn't change. And I thought, wow, whew. How do you do that? That's quite a high thing to do, isn't it? And I've heard, I don't know if it's true, but I heard Dadi Prakash Mani, who was one of the heads of Brahma Kumaris for many years, absolutely wonderful person. I heard that she had this see the best and forget the rest, which is very much connected to what I just mentioned. So somehow to train my vision to only see goodness, and if I see anything else, I choose to forget it. Which in my understanding is not to be influenced by them, influenced by that situation, so that I'm not carrying that forward. And that I did hear this expression, I can't remember where I heard it, but the greatest virtue is to see virtue. So the greatest virtue to see virtue, and the greatest defect or the greatest weakness is to see weakness and defect in others. And we have this expression, don't we? Even if someone's got 99 defects, they must have some good quality, and my job is actually to see that. And I feel probably that's one of the most important practices, like for myself, to train myself to do that. So I'm just looking at the time really. Yeah, I think just, and the other thing, because I was thinking, how do I do that? The whole thing of being mindful and being in the moment and being present seems to be very important, because I've been monitoring myself this last week or so, knowing that I was going to be talking about regard. And so I was actually looking at how respectful and how regardful I was to the people around me here. And normally I think I am quite respectful, but then I noticed that when you start looking, you can see that there's little ways of speaking. I'm quite, well, people who know me, I'm quite lighthearted and quite jokey and quite a conversationalist. But I noticed that this last week, I was thinking, just to make a quick joke or quip, sometimes isn't necessarily respectful. And I noticed that as I started going beyond this, going a little bit deeper, thought, no, I won't say that, because it's, you know, making a joke about what someone's cooked or this or that or the other it's not nice. It can hurt. And the other thing I just want to throw in, well, it's going to kind of finish though, because maybe some questions or comments. You know, the first person that receives the respect or the regard is us, because, you know, we know what goes out comes back. So if I'm looking at someone in a disrespectful way and having those thoughts, what I've noticed, they come back to me and I don't feel good. So I'm the first one. I'm the first one that's affected. And not feeling good obviously is not an aspect of self-care. Right, I'm going to stop there because I'm conscious of the time. Yeah, I'm just looking at the notes. I think I've kind of mentioned most of what I was wanting to share. But just one thing, I did find a quote from the Prince's Trust, which is, of course, now Prince Charles, is now King Charles, you know, set up the trust to help young people. And going back to these young people who are a bit alienated, you know, they wanted a system that engaged them rather than just tell them what to do. And it was one of the quotes from the young people, no one asked me why. Why I did something. The courts are always too busy to ask. And for me, just listening to me can mean the world. People like me are told what to do, but they're not asked. So, yeah, I mean, in my time as a dentist, where I was working in Bradford, it was very, very working class, down to earth, and multicultural. And so in my work, I came across a whole different strata of people. And I did try and have a vision of equality, which I couldn't really do until I came across the ideas of the Brahma Kumaris, but I felt everyone had to be treated equal, but I couldn't quite understand how to do it. Right, I'm going to stop there. I hope something has been of use.
Okay, so thank you so much, Brother David. A question, there are two questions which I would want to ask. One is mentioned in the
Okay.
chat box that I'm a very flamboyant personality. And the moment I go into a gathering, it seems I always steal the show. So it's not in my hands because I'm flamboyant, that's what they're saying. But then how do I make sure that I don't steal the show and give equal recognition and regard to the people around in the gathering?
Probably by being a little bit less flamboyant. It's not, in my experience, it's not good to suppress our natural nature. Like for myself, I'm originally from Liverpool, which you know, the Beatles and fame and we're known for talking. So I'm I've always been a conversationalist since I was quite young, and also being a children's dentist. You know, when you're working with young children, you can't just stay quiet. So it used to be a bit of a joke, really. I was supposed to be a meditator and a yogi and stay peaceful and quiet, but I'd have to spend 8 hours of my day literally constantly talking because young children are nervous when they come in. And so, and people, you know, and so what happened, that carried on into meetings. And so, you know, even meetings, because I'm help on the management committee and with our seniors, that I have the habit of talking. And I realized that it wasn't useful at that point because I needed to listen. And what I noticed that if I talked too much or interrupted too much, people didn't actually listen to what I was saying because they thought, oh, David's going to go on a bit. And so I had to train myself, and I am in the process of training myself to listen more. It's interesting that the letters of listen in English also, if you change them round, become silent. But silent doesn't mean that you don't say anything, but in my case, it means let everyone finish. And then if someone else doesn't make the point that I want to make, then I can make that point. And I think Maureen mentioned this whole thing of no, not appreciative inquiry, nonviolent communication, where you're sharing how you're feeling. So previously, if there was a decision made, I would just be very forthright and say, I think this is a ridiculous decision, blah, 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 blah. And no one would listen because I was dominating. Afterwards, I would say, well, you know, I changed my approach, and I said, when I heard that this decision was made, I felt a little bit disappointed and a little bit frustrated and a little bit irritated. So I changed how I responded, and that process is still in process. But I mean, I can equate with what Paul's asking. I don't say I'm flamboyant, but I'm because of my way of interacting and speaking with people, you can step into other people's spaces too much. And so for me, you know, I've had to learn to sort of dial down my communication to make sure that I'm actually hearing someone. So if they speak, I don't take the conversation from them. And I'm training myself to do that, ask them, you know, their interest and to share more rather than just listen, for me to take over the conversation. Now, I'm not sure if that relates directly to what the question is with the flamboyance, but I think once the very fact that you're aware that you're flamboyant, and it can be a little bit detrimental, that's the first thing. And then I guess you just find a way just to maybe dial it down a little bit so that you're not stepping into other people's spaces. Like with the listening thing, you know, we used to have meetings, and some of with the, you know, the men in the room, they were doing all the talking, and I knew that some of the women or the sisters definitely had things to say, and I asked them, why you're not speaking? And she said, because you guys are thinking and speaking too fast for me. Because I realized that I think very quickly. So, you know, someone's saying something, you kind of get it after they've spoken a little bit, and then you say, okay, that's fine. And of course, now I'm learning not to do that, because it's very disrespectful to cut someone off, even though you've got what they're saying. Now I'm having to learn to let them finish. So I've had to develop patience, a little bit of humility, learning to listen and kind of dial down, and so that's what I would suggest. And I'm sure whoever's given that comment can find some way of just dialing down a little bit, but not losing your naturalness.
Right. So yes, so it's having a balance between your flamboyance and naturalness. Great. Okay, and actually we don't have time, but I think you can just give a brief answer for this. We are shooting over time. That how do I develop regard for God, for the Supreme Being? Or how do I increase my regard?
Oh my God, what a question. You know, I mean, on a personal level, before I came across the Brahma Kumaris, I think I must have had thousands of spiritual books, and they were all good, but there was always something that wasn't quite the complete picture. And for me anyway, it might be different for different people. I found when I came across the teachings in the Brahma Kumaris, they were very complete, and that for me was very important. And daily we listen to lessons which we understand are from the divine, and as I understand those more deeply, my regard and respect for that one above grows and grows, because I thought, wow, this is such beautiful, insightful, clear spiritual information that's very useful to me. And that one's vision for me has never changed. Like, we've all been very material conscious, and Brahma Kumaris would say body conscious, and so we've been up to all sorts of things that have not been useful to us or others. That being doesn't seem to see all that. He seems to look past that and look right into the center of the bullseye, like the archer, and goes right into our original and eternal qualities. And that's great. So I'd like to learn that more.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And now I would request Dr. Mehta to propose the vote of thanks. Over to you, Dr. Mehta. Yeah.
Om Shanti. David,
Hello, lovely to see you. I was surprised to see you.
I just love to listen to you. Just enjoyed listening. Whatever you say, it's so interesting. David has always been a great conversationalist, and I think he has the greatest regard for everyone. Make them happy, make them laugh. I think that's the way to give the regard. Make everyone happy around. I've known David for, I don't know how many, 30 years. David, it's been, he said very beautifully that he was a pediatric dental surgeon, and therefore he had to keep on talking to people as a regard towards making them happy. I think I've enjoyed listening to David irrespective, and I think that's the greatest regard I can pay to him. And I think focusing, he talked about, is something very interesting. Keep on focusing, keep on focusing. Absolutely, like Arjun, he was talking about the showing a bow and arrow kind of action. I think that is something very interesting. Regards for everyone, and regards for God, and regards for the self itself. Thank you, David. I think we enjoyed your talk. And every time I meet you, I only want to listen. I don't want to talk. Thank you. Yes.
Very sweet. Asha, can I have a close doctor and patient relationship as well? Because he did my cancer operation 20 years ago, and I'm still here, so I have a lot of respect for him as well.
So thank you so much, both of you. And I would request Sister Claudia, she has a few announcements as well, special announcements from her side. And yeah.
Om Shanti, David. It was very nice to listen to you. And
Yeah,
actually,
nice
we have things in common. I'm a dentist too, like you. And I know when the patient comes, they are very scared. Dentists, for them, it's like little devils, So we need to talk a little bit with them so they can calm down. And another thing also, I had work with this poor kids, and they actually, when we give them care and respect, they grow in life. And they come out from that poverty, and they becomes actually, some became businessmen, some became very good, practicing very good, nice things. So yeah, I have that experience as you do. So it was very good to listen from you. your experience. So another thing I like to talk is because we are reaching the 50th anniversary, 50th episode of the Values for Life. So I thought about it to give back to the Global Hospital some contributions for some project they have there. So we are making for the golden episode, so 50 episode that we are having. So anyone who wants to contribute for Global Hospital, we have here the link that you can put pointoflife.info. Let me see, I cannot read. .donation. And this is for the whole, you can go America, and I don't know about India. India, maybe we need to contact Dr. Pratap, or maybe Dr. Ashok Mehta can give, or Dr. Manoj can give the link how they can contribute, because we like to have, when you contribute, please put golden Values for Life, golden episode, so they know that is from this gift that's coming from our Values for Life. Thank you very much to everyone, and thank you very much to you, brother. It was very nice to hear from you.
So, yeah. So thank you so much, Sister Claudia. And I'll just take quickly the announcements and before we go into the meditation with Brother David. So yeah, as Claudia's sister already announced that we are on the 49th episode right now. And as we move further, the next episode is 50th. We are very fortunate to have our very senior Mohini Didi all the way from New York. And Brother Eric would be having a little bit of spiritual chit chat with her she'll be there with us for 1 hour. So the first half hour she'll give a talk, and the next half hour will be a nice chit chat, and it will be on surrender, the value of surrender. And this is the Golden Jubilee episode, and whereby we are thinking we would want to give Mohini Didi this special gift, as Claudia's sister already said, that donation towards the global hospital. So I think we would request Dr. Mehta later, not today, we don't have time, to tell us the account number or something to find out how to send in India the funds if someone wants to donate to global hospital. As always, the workshop following the talk would be on 22nd October, and we'll be having another new sister with us, Sister Pratibha Daya from South Africa. And after that, all of you know, October is a special month for us. We have the World Values Day, usually on 21st October happening. I think it's the third Thursday of every October. And we celebrate it because we started this Values for Life series from that day itself. So we have our second birthday approaching, and then we have our very seniors again, Brother Charlie and Asha Didi from ORC Delhi, who would be chit-chatting in conversation with Brother Eric, as always again. So please, all of you are welcome to join this event, not to miss once in a lifetime event. And this is our elegant calendar prepared by Kosha Behin. And I think we send you the emails as well. You'll be receiving them soon. So I'll stop sharing the screen now. And before I forget, yeah, these are our emails, and the Values for Life series at gmail.com. We have started sending emails to y'all from this. So make sure it's not from Vihasa India anymore. And that's also Vancouver email at ca.brahmakumaris.org. That's our website. And we'll also send you the link to these playlists for the workshops and the episodes which we do in the emails and the WhatsApp numbers. Okay, so with this, I'll just stop sharing, and I would request Brother David to take us in the meditation mode on how to develop regard for self. Thank you.
Thank you. So we've listened to a huge amount of information and beautiful points through the whole 2 hours. So I just request you to really bring yourself right into the present moment. So whatever has gone before and whatever we've all got to do afterwards, just put that to one side. Come into the present moment. If there's any distractions around you, just let them be there. But we can choose not to give them our attention. I'd like us to just reflect really on this quality of appreciative, of focusing on goodness. Just reflect. There is a choice to see what is good or bad, what is damaged or faulty in anyone. Or I have the choice to appreciate what is good, benevolent, beautiful, life-affirming. So let me just reflect and maybe make that choice that from now I will choose to focus on goodness more and more. Maybe reflect on what happens when I focus on goodness and when I appreciate. Now just focus on the self as the inner being, the spiritual being, the soul. And see if you can pick out one or two qualities or virtues that are strong in you. And appreciate yourself for that. Now let's take our thoughts beyond a little bit, up to that spiritual sun up above, the divine, the supreme. And maybe just for a few moments reflect on what it is that that one sees and appreciates in me. And as I do that, I can feel the power of that spiritual sun flowing into myself and energizing myself so that I have the strength to put into practice the things that I've been reflecting on. And so I just stay for a couple of moments in my natural state of peace and my natural state of self-regard and self-respect. Thank you.
Thank you once again, Brother David, and for your sharings and for the meditation as well. And Anu sister, any other things you have to carry on with, or that's it? Right.
Can we take a picture? And thank you so much, David, brother, for this invaluable sharing.
Thank you.
We usually take a picture with our guest speakers, so we don't want to miss it.
Okay. Okay. So what do I do? Just smile?
Yes, smile more. So everyone can open their video.
Oh, I see. Okay. Yeah.
People
that's
don't
good.
open, but they open for the photo because we want to keep this as our name. Yeah, I got it. And thank you very much for very, very practical. Thank you.
Thank you so much once again.
Okay. Carry on the good work, everyone. You're doing a fantastic job.